Once upon a time, in a small village on the edge of a deep and mysterious forest, there lived a little boy named Zaid. He was a curious child who liked to ask many questions about everything around him. And most of all, he loved adventures. The forest that bordered their village was huge and ancient, with gnarled trees that twisted towards the sky like wrinkled hands and leaves that whispered secrets to the wind. Everyone in the village believed that the forest was enchanted and dangerous, filled with all kinds of magical creatures and evil spells. As a result, they never went near it, not even during the day. But Zaid was always fascinated by the stories that the elders told about the forest. He couldn't understand why everyone was so afraid of it. He wished he could go inside and discover what lay beyond those imposing trees. He lived in a small house made of clay and straw, with his parents and little sister. His mother was a kind woman who spent all her days making bread and taking care of her animals, while his father was a strong and silent man who worked in the fields from sunrise to sunset. Neither of them understood their son's obsession with the forest, and they always told him to stay away from it because it was no place for a child. But Zaid couldn't stop thinking about the forest, and he often sneaked out of his house to explore the edge of the woods. One afternoon, while he was playing by the river that flowed at the edge of the village, he heard a weak voice calling for help. He approached cautiously until he found a small turtle stuck under a tree branch. Without thinking twice, he rushed over to help her and gently pushed the branch to free her. "Thank you," said the turtle in a sweet voice. "You are good and brave, Zaid, and for this I will give you the key to the magic forest." She took out a small gold key from her shield and handed it to him. "In the heart of the forest is the tree of life. If you reach it, you will get one wish from it, but the road is full of challenges and tests. Are you sure you want to continue?" Zaid looked at the key in his hand and thought for a moment. He knew that the forest was dangerous, but his curiosity and desire for adventure were stronger than his fear. So he nodded bravely and said, "Yes, I want to continue." The turtle smiled and said, "Very well. Then take this water from the river and pour it on the first stone monolith you find. It will open the path for you." Then with a flick of her tail, she disappeared into the bushes, and Zaid was left alone in the middle of the forest. Taking a deep breath, he walked into the trees, following the sound of the river. Soon he saw a large stone monolith, covered with moss and vines. He poured the water on it, and nothing happened. Confused, he tried again, but the monolith remained motionless. Suddenly, he heard a cackle of laughter behind him, and turned to see the turtle from before, leaning on a nearby tree with a mocking smile. "You have to pour the water on the monolith with faith and determination, silly child," she said. "Do you think I'm going to let you enter the forest so easily? This is my territory, and you are just an intruder here." With that, she vanished again and reappeared in front of the monolith. Looking at her, she closed her eyes, raised her head towards the sky, and splashed water on the monolith with all her strength. The monolith glowed with a bright green light and slowly split in two, revealing a narrow path between them. Zaid felt a surge of excitement as he stepped onto the path. The forest around him seemed to come alive with movement and sound. Strange plants with luminous flowers lined the path, and colorful butterflies fluttered among the trees. However, the tranquility of the forest was deceptive, because as soon as he entered, he heard growling and heavy footsteps approaching him. Startled, he hid behind a thick tree trunk and saw a ferocious wolf with sharp fangs and claws jump over a log. The animal looked at him for a moment, and Zaid felt his heart pound in his chest, paralyzed by fear. But the wolf suddenly changed direction and disappeared into the undergrowth without doing any harm. Relieved, he continued on his way. After walking for a while, he came across a river so wide that he couldn't see the other bank. In the distance, he saw a small boat on the shore, but it was old and battered, and he didn't know if it was strong enough to support him. Nevertheless, he had no other choice, so he got into the boat and began to row. But as soon as he moved away from the shore, the boat began to crack and leak. Panicked, he tried to row faster, but it was no use. The boat was about to sink. Suddenly, a beautiful woman appeared on the other bank and said, "Are you all right, young man? It seems your boat is in trouble." Without saying a word, he nodded, tears in his eyes. The woman waved her magic wand, and the river calmed down. Then she approached the boat, and with a gentle touch, repaired the cracks. "There you go," she said with a smile. "Your boat is fixed now. Be careful on the river and don't trust strangers." Then she disappeared, and the boat began to move forward smoothly, without any more leaks. Zed reached the opposite bank, safe and sound, and thanked the woman for her help. He continued his journey, but soon realized that he had been walking in circles and had not moved forward. He stopped to catch his breath and saw a raven perched on a nearby tree. "Excuse me," he asked. "Can you tell me where I am?" The raven tilted his head and said, "You are lost in the labyrinth of shadows, child. Only those who are pure of heart and mind can find the way out." Then he flew away, leaving Zed alone in the dark wood. Determined to find the exit, Zed began to walk randomly through the trees. Suddenly, the trees became darker, and the ground under his feet turned soft and muddy. He looked up and realized that the sun was blocked by a thick layer of clouds. "Where am I?" he whispered, feeling a growing sense of fear and loneliness. Then he heard a voice behind him that said, "Welcome to the Shadow Cave, where all fears become real." Startled, he turned around and saw a tall, thin man with sharp claws and glowing red eyes advancing towards him. "Who are you?" Zed asked, taking a step back. "I am the Lord of Shadows," the man replied, his voice echoing eerily through the cave. "And this realm is under my control. You cannot leave until I claim your soul." Zed felt paralyzed with fear, but suddenly he remembered the words of the raven. Only those who are pure of heart and mind can escape the labyrinth. Taking a deep breath, he closed his eyes and concentrated on the love he felt for his family and friends, on the joy of playing by the river, and on the kindness of the villagers. When he opened his eyes, he saw the Lord of Shadows approaching him. But instead of fear, he felt a surge of courage and determination. "I may be just a simple village boy," he said, "but I believe that goodness and love are stronger than any shadow or fear." With that, he walked towards the exit of the cave, ignoring the Lord of Shadows, who was getting more and more angry. "How dare you defy me?" he shouted, extending his claws towards Zed. "You will regret it." But as soon as the man touched him, he screamed and vanished into thin air. Zed continued walking until he saw a faint light ahead. He ran towards it and found himself in a clearing, bathed in sunlight. The trees around him were no longer dark and menacing, but rather beautiful and majestic, with leaves that rustled in the wind and birds that sang in their branches. In the center of the clearing stood a magnificent tree, with leaves of gold and silver, and a trunk so wide that several people could hug it. And Zed knew that this was the legendary Tree of Life. As he approached the tree, he heard a gentle voice saying, "Well, you've made it, child. What is your wish?" Zed thought for a moment. He had overcome many obstacles and faced his fears to reach the tree, and he knew that his wish should be something truly special. "I wish my village becomes full of knowledge, and that every child can learn and read books," he said. The Tree of Life shone brightly and granted his wish, and so it was done. From that day on, Zed's village was known throughout the land for its wisdom and culture. All children could read and write, and the village prospered thanks to the knowledge and innovation of its inhabitants. and Zed became a hero and a symbol of courage and wisdom for all villagers. They built a statue in his honor and told stories about his bravery for generations to come. The moral of the story is that courage doesn't mean the absence of fear, but rather its confrontation for something greater. Goodness and good intentions can change the world.